Hi everybody, this is an overview or brief overview of Chapter 7, Preventing Challenging Behavior with the Social Climate. Um, the previous textbook, it talked about the social climate in reference to the social context. So I wanted to go through and kind of update the language in my PowerPoint to match your current edition of the textbook. And I just didn't get through it all in time. But I wanted to give you this information anyway, because what I wanted you to connect with is that we're starting to look at how do we address challenging behaviors in the environments that we work in with children. So the social climate could be at home, it could be the classroom, the church, any environment where the child who is demonstrating the challenging behavior is a part of. So just to recap, challenging behavior, it is troubling and it's puzzling, okay? Because like I've said, day one, there's no concrete resolution to how we address challenging behaviors because it's so context or climate specific, meaning that it's really based on the location, the experience, the trauma, the whatever is going on in that child's life in that moment. Okay, so teachers naturally want to know how to respond to challenging behaviors, and of course we need to know what to do, but there's just not one answer. It would be great if challenging behavior never entered your classroom door, but this is going to take a lot of prevention strategies. Where we are, once the child is demonstrating the challenging behavior, we're now working on intervention, how to intervene. The goal ultimately, especially when you finish this class, is to infuse prevention strategies. Just what are the things we're going to do every single day to help children develop healthy coping skills, to be resilient and to understand their own emotions and how to express that in healthy ways, because we can't take away issues. Okay, so it is probably impossible to eliminate the challenging behavior entirely, which we talked about before, so we want to make sure we can figure out what to do to prevent. Prevention is important because it can stop a child from accumulating risk factors. So the risk factors are already there, but what we don't want is for those risk factors to grow, so that there's more and more situations that's going to impact this child and his or her behavior. The other thing to pay attention to is that the longer a child uses an inappropriate behavior, the harder it is to help that child change. So we can work with children, we can work with adults who demonstrate challenging behaviors. The problem is the longer they have been allowed to use that behavior and that behavior works for them, the harder it's going to be to get them to change. It's just like someone who, has a habit, whatever that habit is. The longer they have indulged in that habit, the harder it is to get them to stop. The more frequently a teacher helps children refrain from challenging behavior, the less they're learning to use it. Okay, so that's the goal. We want to teach children other behaviors to refrain from using the challenging behaviors, so that they are able to try, to not let the issues pile on. Because when children demonstrate challenging behaviors, remember, it impacts the way the teachers see them and engage with them, and not just the teachers, but other kids and everybody. And so that's how the issues can continue to grow. The risk factors can accumulate. So how does prevention work? Well, research tells us that prevention is more likely to be effective when it starts early. It continues over a long period of time, so you just don't want to do it in a moment and then, the child is behaving better, and then you just stop. You really want to be consistent and be consistent over a long period of time so that you can make sure that the behavior is being, that the child doesn't revert back to that behavior. Prevention also works if it's happening in a wraparound approach, meaning what's happening at school is supported by the home and vice versa. There really needs to be better communication between the educators and the families, because if it's not happening simultaneously in different environments or different climates that the child is in, then you're going to continuously have a clash or conflict in behaviors with the child. Prevention also works if it takes place in a real life setting instead of a psychologist's office. And I think I shared with you guys in class that, we really need to work. I know psychology, I know it's confidentiality and it's a client, therapist, privilege and all that kind of stuff. But particularly for my child and his disorder, it does not work to send my child in a room with a psychologist and let them have an hour or so together, because my child might develop a relationship with the psychologist that's not helping his or her growth. And with my child's issue, I need to learn how to recognize the triggers and the signs and be able to work with him as well as his teachers. So the more we work together in the real life settings, meaning I go to the school and observe and engage with him there, therapist comes to the home and engage and observe us here, the better it's going to be for the child. Okay? And when you talk to children in the therapist's office about how to work with a kid that, when they feel like they're being bullied, it's hard. The children, you need to be there in the moment with the kid, helping them to talk through the issue, use problem-solving strategies and steps, and see that it can work when it's actually happening versus going back to talk about it at a different time in a different setting. Okay? So this chapter gives you a lot of information to consider. You need to consider that what your viewpoints are. Sometimes we put all the kids in one box and we want to treat them the same. But we really have to individualize more. We have to provide more individualized support. And this is where it gets a little tricky with educators, because even parents, they want to follow the same practice and strategy that they did for child 1 with child 2. What we need to realize is that children need consistent limits. However, our approach to working with each child may not be consistent. Okay, you may have one child that needs a little bit more time to transition, so they may need to hold your hand a little bit longer, where the other child is running off, see ya, bye. So you don't want to say to the child who needs you, well, it's not fair for me to spend an extra 5 minutes with you because I can't spend an extra 5 minutes with Johnny. Well, Johnny is gone. Johnny doesn't need the extra 5 minutes. But if the two children were demonstrating challenging behaviors, it is important to be consistent with the limits and the consequences, okay? Because we don't want to give the impression that one child, based on their needs, can get away with certain behaviors different from another child. So we have to be clear on how we approach that. I want you to make sure you read the examples of this consistency yet flexibility when working with children on page 124, and also read Glory in the Flower. That should give you a better perspective. Now, here's the things that we need to do. We need to create a positive social climate. So one, we have to understand a social climate. That climate is everywhere. Even if you can't touch it, it's the way that people talk and engage and interact. It's the smell, the setup, everything about that environment is the social climate. Positive social climate is everything that we do to create positive experiences for everyone in that environment, in that climate. So what are we doing to make sure that all children can learn, that we are making sure that children are not impacted by the challenging behaviors of each other, and that we are supporting children and making it clear that we don't tolerate violence and we don't tolerate bullying. But this is what we're going to do to help you. We're going to show you how to express yourself in more healthier and appropriate ways, because we understand that you need help and that there's things that are bothering you, but we want to make sure you do it in a safe way for everyone. So that's what it means by creating a positive social climate. So I'm going to stop here because I'm about 10 minutes into the video, and I want you to finish reading. I want you to get to the section where they talk more about the teacher's role, because in your discussion for the week, you want to come up with ideas that you can implement, and they may not be 100%, but that's the purpose of the class, that we are going to learn what we can do that to help children who may demonstrate challenging behaviors and feel more socially involved and engaged in their environment. So just read through it, and anywhere like here where you see context, just remember that, the textbook changed it to climate, and I just haven't finalized the PowerPoint yet. Okay, have a good weekend. Bye-bye.